take it slow. Oh boy, did I have
Yeah,
to learn that the hard way. Let's talk
me
about that.
too. Yeah, learn from us and do it right. Yeah, learn from our mistakes.
Thanks again for tuning into Second Act TV. Would like to welcome back C.K. Collins, the author of The Swipe Right Effect, The Power to Get Unstuck, aka Kelly. Thanks so much for being here again.
Yeah, I'm happy to be.
Yeah, we just finished a segment where we talked about Kelly's story about her divorce. A topic here on Second Act that's huge. The whole phenomena of gray divorce, what you go through, and then starting life over again. And that's where I want to pick up today. I'll link to our first segment about getting through it. But now you're ready to go again, or are you? And you have
Yeah.
5 tips here about what to do before you start dating again, and we'll go through that. But first, the question I have, Kelly, is how do you know that you're ready? Is there an easy answer to that?
It may be easier to know that you're not
Yeah.
by, understanding that if you are seeking validation in another person, like
Mm-hmm.
your confidence isn't there yet. You're afraid instead of excited.
Mm.
There's some key indicators that you're not ready yet. When you feel like it's excitement instead of, oh gosh, I want to go meet this guy and oh
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when it seems
Yeah.
like, hey, I might make another friend today, when it's
Mm-hmm.
time. That's when it's time.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's fun,
Yeah.
yeah, when it's fun or it's exciting. I totally get that. Well, let's go through the 5 things you absolutely need to do, before you start dating. The first one that you say here is define what you want in a partner, in 20 words or less. What do you mean by that?
So it's really values based. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you looking for in a partner that will match you?
Mm-hmm.
And, on my list, it was empathy. I'm a very empathetic person, and I'm uncomfortable when I'm with someone who's not empathetic. Like they're
Mm.
kind of like biting or criticizing other people. That makes me super uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
things like empathy, kindness, joyful. Yeah, I don't want to be with somebody grumpy. I'm pretty joyful. Capable of loving my children, traveling. For me, travel is a value.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
find it changes my life. And so it's part of who I am. And I need somebody who gets excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just some examples from my list. But where I learned about this, it was
Mm-hmm.
not like the teenage kind of thing where I'm just making a list of,
Yeah.
he's got brown hair and brown eyes and he's 6 foot
Yeah.
tall. And
Yeah. Right.
that's, it's more about what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing this workshop as a
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Woodward Thomas wrote a book, and Mind Valley created a workshop. It's called Calling in the One,
Mm.
and it's really makes you think about your own stuff about
Mm-hmm.
90% of the time, and then how do you attract what you're
Yeah.
wanting. And so she has you make a list. I just stopped at 20. I think I was right at 20 when I made my list. And then she says, okay, narrow it down to 5. And so I did. And then she says, now go be those things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are those things, you will attract that to your life.
Yeah.
Your love, your future love, your one is out there, but you have to be attracting them and being that person, being
Mm-hmm.
their one, being the one for them. It is funny because people kind of laugh at lists, but this list I think is really important.
Yeah. Well, I think the list where it gets confusing is a lot of dating coaches, make your list, know what you want. But the confusion is like, and you mentioned that, it's 6 foot, brown hair, has to be a professor, make so much money. Those are the bad lists. Those are lists that really keep you from finding who
Yeah.
you want. But it's the value base that is so important. And like you said, it's about learning about yourself, really.
Mm,
And then to
yeah.
me, I had the same experience when I first heard that. Now go out and be that. Are you the person who you want to attract? And when
Right.
you really think about that, it is, that's, we don't, unless somebody says that to you, it's not something that you easily think about. So I
No, it's
always,
not natural.
yeah, no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Am I? That's a great learning point. Well, the second one here, create a self-love mantra practice. I think you're referring to rebuilding confidence here, right?
Yeah, it's so when I first everything first came out with my divorce and the betrayal came to light,
Mm-hmm.
I was really hesitant to tell my family because once you tell them, you can't go back, right? And so I went and I told my sister-in-law what was going on, and she shows up like, 2 hours later with a bracelet that said, "I am enough." And I put it on my wrist and I didn't take it off for probably 3 years. But she explained to me, or she shared with me a story about one of her dear friends who went through a lot of betrayal. And one day she finally said, "I am enough." And she was able to stand up for herself and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that being able to look at my wrist anytime, all day, and see those words, "I am enough,"
Mm-hmm.
became my mantra. And I would say, "Yes, I am," to myself. And then the other thing is like when you love yourself, people can feel that. They can see it in your energy. You stand different, you speak differently. And so you're putting out a vibe that you love yourself and that you love yourself. Then you become a magnet for other positive people that love
Mm-hmm.
themselves. So
Yep.
it's the same thing as, that list. And confidence is sexy.
Mm-hmm.
I've had many men say that to me, that a woman is so much more attractive when she's confident.
Yeah.
And it makes sense to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, we hear that all the time too. And yeah, it is true. It is absolutely true. We're drawn to confident people. So,
Mhm.
so great point. Have your own life routine in place. That builds right on confidence to where you're not living for someone else. Talk to me about that.
If you are newly divorced and you haven't done anything like go out and meet new people or try new things, and you're just really freshly there,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to fall into dating being the most important thing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you establish a routine that involves, 1 or 2 nights a week, I'm going out with my friends. Every day I'm going to exercise, or 4 days a week, I'm going to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
That you set your time up to be taking care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
making yourself happy. And
Mm-hmm.
then the dates have to fit in around this because you are the most important thing, because you
Mm-hmm.
love yourself and you're confident enough to say, I'm just not available on those nights.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my girls' night out. Or that's the night that I go running with my friends. And
Mm-hmm.
so sorry, I can't do it that night. As opposed to what I did in the beginning was, oh, I'm gonna cancel that, or I'm not gonna go on my run because I want to go on this date, because the date is so much more important than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important to understand that the people that you want to date,
Mm-hmm.
they want to date somebody who has a life.
Yeah.
So make
Yeah.
sure you have a life, and that there is something about you, and that you live your life confidently, that you
Mm-hmm.
matter, and
Yeah.
you will be more attractive to someone.
No, I agree. I'd really like our men to weigh in on this because we talk about this a lot. So, a confident woman is sexy.
Mm.
Let's talk about that in the comments. What is it about confidence that, I guess not arrogance. I think where the disconnect is, but just being
Right.
confident versus being arrogant. So I'll have to see what our men have to say about this. Another important point here that we don't often talk about, but is have a safety network in place before you date. What
Yeah.
exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think first of all, when you are getting ready to go on a date, you need to let somebody know where you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be and who you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
with, because I think women make themselves vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and out of naivete, not
Mm-hmm.
because they're being reckless. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
accidental. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a guy ask me one time, he was a runner, and he was like, let's go for a run in such and such
Mm-hmm.
park.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I would love to do that at like maybe a third or fourth date, but I think my daughters would be a little disappointed in me if I went to a park with somebody I didn't know
Mm.
and put myself in a position where something could happen to me. And he said, "Oh, wow, I have daughters and I've never thought of that." He just was trying to connect with me on the running key.
Yeah.
And I think and so we talked about that. I appreciate that you tried to connect with me on that, but I'd be more comfortable in a public place.
Yeah.
And my friend Trish taught me to just let somebody know where you're going to be and who with, and then there's a safety network. You can also do find a friend or find your family. There's apps where people can see where you are.
Yeah.
And I let my sister-in-law and my oldest daughter see where I'm at. I don't let everybody see where I'm at.
Yeah.
But and a lot of that was because I was traveling the world. But it's important to know like where you last were if you go missing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to be negative or I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's
Cautious.
a really important part
Yeah,
of
no,
dating.
I agree. I'm glad you included that. This is my favorite here, number 5. Take it slow. Oh boy, did I have
Yeah.
to learn that the hard way. Let's talk
Me
about that.
too. Yeah. Learn from us and do it right. Yeah. Learn from our mistakes. If when you're rushing into something and you're just going with oh my God, the chemistry kicked in and I'm so excited. Well, I definitely did that. I followed what I thought was my heart, but it was really a chemical reaction I was having.
Right.
That's really a physical reaction, which that's really a fight or flight kicking in. And so if you take your time and you kind of keep your calm, I think the more you realize your time is valuable and the more the other person respects your time.
I think, especially for our talk today, one of the reasons that you and I in particular, and a lot of other women, and maybe men, again, men weigh in on this.
Yeah, for sure.
We do it's fast because we came from a very unhappy marriage. We haven't been with anybody for a long I was in a sexless marriage for 10 years, and now all of a sudden you get attention. People are, they want to be with you.
Yeah,
It's the one.
yeah.
And that was so when I
Yeah.
read that in the book, it was like, oh my God, she's just like me, so
I think a lot of people hopefully feel like that, but it's that chemistry that you're just like, oh, wow. And then you start going, did I ever even have this much chemistry in my own marriage? That you start questioning everything. Everything feels like it's on steroids. It's 10 times what it probably really is just because you're so excited. And I mean, I had a relationship that I talk about in the book that I met him in Nashville, but he was from another place. And the chemistry was so instant. And I couldn't believe how badly, he wanted to be with me. And I just got caught up in that. And he was honest with me that he didn't want a long distance relationship, but I couldn't believe that this would be this great. Like, this is so great. How could he not want to have a long distance relationship with me? And I just ignored what he said because I was so caught up in how I was feeling. And I really wasn't protecting myself. I wasn't taking it slow. I think it's just really, I like sharing my mistakes because I don't like telling people what to do. I think you learn from storytelling. And so
I totally agree.
I like sharing how I messed up more so that people don't make that mistake. But yeah, and it's honestly, and I can't speak for guys, but I think that may have been a red flag to him that I was jumping in so hard.
Totally.
And I've had on the reverse situation, I've had a guy jump in too hard, too fast. I'm saying I love you on the third date. And I was just like, whoa, dude. And so it's actually a turnoff, if you're jumping in too hard, too fast and not listening to their signals.
Exactly. Well, talk about signals. One of the red flags you just mentioned, of course, is love bombing. We've talked about that on other segments. It's when all of a sudden, sometimes on the first date or before they even meet you, they're just on, you're just the love of their life, all of a sudden. I mean, it's called love bombing, and it's a huge red flag because that goes as quickly as it comes. But another one that especially, women who with a background like ours, the mixed signals, when you want this to work so bad, or you really like this guy like you did, and like I said, I was there, but you're making rationalizing why he's not calling, why, you just, you're not getting the mixed signals because you want it to be true.
My friend Trish, she said there's this breadcrumbing thing where
Yes.
somebody will give you just enough signal that they're interested, and then
Mm-hmm.
they lean back and they just ignore you for a
Right.
couple of days, and then they lean in again and
Mm-hmm.
give you a few more tidbits. And I think that mixed signal, when your confidence is not there, then you're going to lean in with them, and
Yeah.
then you stay leaned in when they pull back.
Right.
And it's so unhealthy
Yeah.
because they're not honoring you in any
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
But this behavior comes from a lack of self-confidence. I mean, if somebody's doing that to you, you should be saying, um,
Goodbye.
block,
Yeah. Yeah.
delete, block, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you need to do. You don't let somebody treat you like that. The mixed signals are there because they might just not be into you.
Right, exactly. And it's for us to recognize it. And somebody has to tell you that. And hopefully for us talking about it today, that someone go, oh, they had to tell me, that's for sure. That's
Yeah.
how I learned all this.
Yeah.
The last one was starting to come to the end. The last one I want to talk about, because I think it's important too, is that instant sexuality, the, sex on the first date. And again, when you have our history, somebody actually wants you.
Right.
We jump into bed, and I'm not talking for all women, obviously, but that happens more often than you think,
Oh
even
yeah.
at our age.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had a lot of girlfriends, open up in a quiet moment at home, and talk about that. If that's two consenting adults and they want to do that, and you've decided that you're okay with it the next day, then okay. But
Mm-hmm.
generally it's something that you're caught up in the moment, or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
had one too many glasses of wine,
Yeah.
and then you gave in, we didn't really want to. It never feels good on the other side. It
Mm-hmm.
really is something that I've yet to meet a woman who said, I'm so glad I did that. I don't know. I think it's like you get disappointed in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the hard part of it.
I love what you just said, that you're disappointed in yourself, because if you want to look for a new relationship with somebody who's going to work out, that's not the way it's going to get started. I mean,
Right.
maybe there's a handful of people that have, but that's generally not how
Yeah.
how a real relationship is going to get
Right.
started.
Right. And
Yeah.
again, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. But
Yeah.
if what you want is not a long distance, a long-term relationship, then you need to take your time. And if somebody's pushing for sex on a
Mhm.
first date, that is a red flag.
Yeah, it's
That
a
is a
huge
red
red flag.
flag, and you need to pay attention to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, there's so much more we can talk about, Kelly. I would love to have you back. We'll maybe focus on some different topics. But for today, is there anything else you want to add to the segment before we sign off?
I think that people get hopeless
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and they just stop believing that there's someone out there for them. If you have hope and you're concentrating on putting out into the world what you want back, I believe there's a much higher chance of success. I think it's really important to look at someone's heart and soul and see if it matches yours. That's more important than the chemistry. Right. Honestly, the chemistry can come if you match on a
Mm-hmm.
heart level first.
Totally agree with you. We've done segments on that, chemistry versus connection. So again, couldn't agree with you more. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. I will link to your book, The Swipe
Thank
Right
you.
Effect. Pick it up. It's a great read. I think, especially, I'm going to say, especially for women, because you interviewed women, although your advice, really applies to everybody. But it is, all of a sudden you have the little group of girlfriends
Yeah.
that live in your book. And I'll link to all of your other information. You do have a coaching practice, so if you
Yes.
want to get in touch with Kelly directly, just check our show notes. There'll be a link there. And Kelly, I look forward to having you back again on Second Act TV.
Thank you.